No, the both times that I've had a cast on my ring finger was from playing flag football.
What?
Damn, we don't know the order outside of the main order, huh?
No, I'm first every time. That's all that I know. I'm first and Vlad's last.
What's up? I'm Tanner. This is Indistinct Chatter.
I'm Austin.
I'm Griffin.
And I am Vlad.
And we're here to do our show. And in our show, we're here to, fill the empty space, something to have on in the background while you're cooking or making TikToks or doing homework. All things that I don't really do myself.
You make TikToks.
I like to cook. You do make TikToks. Your TikToks are good too. Everybody go follow Tanner on TikTok. He needs more TikTok followers. He should have some clout because his TikToks are funny as hell.
I don't really try to be truthful.
Yeah, but they're funny. It doesn't matter. That's why they're good, because you're not trying. Thanks, you don't follow trends. You just do what you do.
Thanks, man.
You're welcome, man. Well, I guess we can get into kind of what I want to talk about. As I'm getting older and things become trends again that were once trends. So like the 90s and the 2000s are coming back. I'm noticing that the things that are popular, that are people that are holding on to, that they're nostalgic about, were pop culture. It's not the niche things. And so like now when we think about like movies, TV show, music, the cool people listen to stuff that's niche, right? And so like we always have to hunt for the cool music and hunt for the cool movies, and like, the shit that's winning Oscars and Golden Globes isn't like the cool guy stuff. It's all like the pop culture stuff. It's the stuff that's like popular because, I mean, the way we look at it is it's popular, but it's bad and it has all these flaws, but it's like procedurally made. Now that I'm getting closer to 30 and I'm seeing these two different eras that I lived in, the 90s and the 2000s, coming back, I'm noticing the stuff that people are holding on to that are nostalgic about is the pop culture stuff. So that the question that I want to pose to you guys is pop culture versus niche culture, and why kind of people shit on pop culture when we look back on it. That's the stuff that we appreciate most. The way I pose it to you guys is films versus movies. So this whole thing where it's like, oh, I'm a fan of films. I'm a fan of like these, like people call it films, and then they like call Transformers, Star Wars, those are movies, versus like, Amelie and like whatever, the fucking, what's that movie called? The Lighthouse. That's the one I wanted to mention. They call those films. And it's like, what makes that better than this, And I kind of want to talk about that. And so my point is that what I always say is that pop music is better. Pop music is good, ultimately. That's how I feel about it. And like pop films and pop culture is good. Like if you look at it and you view it from like, if you step out of your body and kind of like look at it from a bird's eye view, you realize like this stuff is made well, and like there's a lot of effort that goes into it. It might not be like maybe meet the same artistic level, but when you think about like Star Wars, like the amount of art that goes into that, like these people who are amazing artisans that are making these miniatures and doing VFX and doing makeup and doing costume, like, yeah, like the script might not be good, like two guys might make it bad, but ultimately if you look at like the art that goes into it, it's not any worse than these other movies that we like consider to be great. And it's why do we view it that way in the now? And then 20 years from now, you're gonna look back like we're looking at the prequels, and we're like, this movie's not that bad, So that's my point,
I mean, some people don't, because there's a whole community that do. And I used to be a person that said there was a difference between movies and films. I was like the only person I knew that would say that. Like I'd have people agree with me, but I never heard anyone else like personally in my close friend group that would ever, put that point out there. I would always be the one saying there's a difference between movies and films. And I've since changed my opinion on that. Like fundamentally, I don't think there is a difference, but I mean, when it comes to the pop culture thing, it's all about retrospect. And that's a
Yeah,
big
it's like
thing that in the moment, you know, that's not that big of a deal, but we always have nostalgia and we always have roots dedicated to different pieces of pop culture
yeah.
that like
And last night
return.
I was listening to like Papa Roach. I'm like, why in the and when this came out, like, wasn't this considered good? Like, it's really good. And it's the same, like, to bring Daft Punk up. Daft Punk is pop music. Like, that shit's on the radio. Everybody knows it. But now that's 30 years later, we're removed from like their beginnings. Even like the cool people that are like music heads can appreciate it, even though it is pop music. And
Yeah.
it just always bothers me because it's like people will shit on, like, bring Justin Bieber into it, like Dua Lipa, Taylor Swift. They're all three of those people are incredibly artistically talented, but like they get shit on because they're so popular. But it's popular because it's good. Like, why else would it be pop? People want to listen to it, and like, so why do we look down on it? And I am now realizing that I used to be a hipster and like only listen to rap music that had like a message, and like, why would you listen to something that didn't have a, you know, like, I guess, why would you listen to something that's like not making you, it's not challenging you? But at the same time, it's like, it's hard to make that shit. Try and make a Justin Bieber song. Like, that shit's incredibly well crafted.
So yeah, here's how I look at it: is I think there are three major things to be addressed. Is like, one is everybody's trying to be cool and unique in their own way. Two, over commercialization, and three, most importantly, I think the big one is there's just too much data out in the world. I used to be a business student, and they talk about the idea of the Internet of Things, and that just talks about how everything in the world is now a data point, so that you can get, or data, I don't know, your homonyms, whatever. There's just too many points now where you can collect information on people and figure out how to basically deliver and sell the best product, right? And I think that's the reason why so much of over commercialized entertainment gets really annoying to us, because half the time you listen to pop radio, especially when it's like more of like a traditional song, like singing as opposed to rap, you'll hear basically the same structure the whole way through. It's usually a pretty generic poppy beat, and it'll be verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, and then the song's over. It's like almost always the exact same structure the whole way through. And you'll see the same thing with so many of like the modern blockbuster movies, where it's just, it feels like the same beat for beat thing that's happening. You get two big massive action set pieces, the person gets their ass kicked, and then maybe there's a cameo of a big person who comes and saves the day. And it's probably because like there's just too much data out with maybe like the testing groups that they like pre-screen it to, where they're like, oh, what was your favorite part of the movie, what was your least favorite part of the movie. We have too much data to now know, like for the studios to know what makes a movie good. Oh, look at all of these movies with The Rock that have charted $1 billion every time. Cool, we have to cast The Rock for our next movie.
Well, it's overexposure is actually what it is. So that ties into what Austin was talking about, like with music too, and what you said about the songs on the radios, right? Mm-hmm. We get sick of those songs, of the Justin Bieber and the Taylor Swift and Dua Lipa songs, because they're playing nonstop on a loop in every store you go to in a mall, in every radio station you flip on. They're in ads on Instagram and Spotify, and you're seeing them being talked about on Twitter. They're in ads on YouTube, and you get sick of that, and you basically flip on a switch where you're like, I don't want to hear that again.
Exactly.
And then 5 years down the line, you throw on a song by one of those artists, and you're just like, hold on, like, whoa, this is way better than I remember. Go to YouTube comments on a Papa Roach song, right? Or a Justin Bieber song, or go to like YouTube comments about like videos from Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and people are like, wow, like this is a lot better than I remember. What were we thinking in the moment? And it's overexposure with TV spots too. How many, ads are there for the same movies and shows that you feel like you're seeing the entire piece of media before you even see it. And so that makes a lot of people want it less. That ties into the Marvel movies so well. I mean, how many ads do they have for all of their properties? Like, I talk to Tanner about it often.
You could piece a trailer together and get a whole film nowadays.
Well, you think you can. I mean, and the marketing team knows what they're doing. Like when they release these weekly TV spots for WandaVision, or it used to be my biggest issue from like Age of Ultron on. So 2015 is when Age of Ultron came out. And when they were marketing up to that movie, there were so many TV spots, and Marvel's done it for almost all of their movies since, especially the biggest team up ones. I always feel like we're seeing too much, and it's not just Marvel, it's overall like Hollywood in general, but especially the superhero genre. I feel the same for DC movies or when Fox was making them. I felt like I was seeing big set pieces or parts of movies that I wish were kept, a secret. Or a great thing is like how things are leaked all the time, or how much knowledge is tying to what Griffin says, how much like the media basically connects everything and overexposure and data. We like tonight, this is to date the show, right? Like we know that Tom Holland's going to be on the Jimmy Fallon show, and Zendaya posted Jacob Badlier, is that how you say his last name? Batalon. They all posted like fake titles for Spider-Man 3, but we know that he's on Jimmy Fallon, so we're like, oh, we're probably gonna get a trailer tonight, or set photos. Like we see how many set photos of things. Now it's a lot better. It's under wraps because of the pandemic. But before like when things were a lot more open, paparazzi were everywhere. You would see costumes, and we're still seeing that stuff. Tanner, what do you think on this?
Because like you're a filmmaker and you appreciate like the niche stuff of music and TV and the hunt for the good stuff.
Yeah, no, I would say as far as like pop culture versus niche, the issue and kind of going in with what I don't know if it's against what going off of what the formulas that everything has a formula. And the reason that they do that isn't just like, ooh, let's see what they like. It's because so many of that not pop stuff doesn't like do well. My issue, and especially being a filmmaker in the kind of position in my, I guess, career that it puts me, is that I'm at like a weird point where I see the very, very, very thin, but also very, very big line between art and business. Yes, art is important, and I very much think art is important, but I understand the realistic aspect that there also is a business side to it, at least for a lot of the art that people enjoy now. So like an example is kind of tying into the Marvel stuff, the amount of like things that fans will complain about like direction wise, that like a lot of Marvel stuff will go, and it's like they should have done this, and it's just, you kind of like, people often forget that these movies are made to make money. Like as much as they want to make you guys happy and they're glad you enjoy them, they didn't make them for you to enjoy them. They made them to make money. And so there's certain things that they can and can't do to make money. So that's just where I feel like a lot of people, when it comes to superhero movies, for example, that people really like, and they kind of understand that pattern, but they also get mad at it because it doesn't always do what they want the story to do. And that's where some of the niche stuff comes from, is so many. I mean, for me, for example, one of my favorite reasons, spoiler alert, one of my favorite reasons that, wait, has everyone here seen Uncut Gems?
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah, one of my favorite reasons, like that, one of the reasons I like that movie is because they killed Howard at the end. They literally killed the main character at the end,
Which fit the story so well. Like
Very
if he didn't in that moment, it just, I don't know. It would have
exactly. But it's a thing of like,
dishonest.
Rarely see that in movies. Like it's usually this happens, and then the main character comes out at the end. And
this ain't that kind of movie.
Because because it was a shift from the what we normally have. It was like, ooh, this is cool, this is different. But I think I very much didn't get to the point, because I was actually thinking of another part of Austin's thing.
But even like now, like you look back on, people like shit on like the A24 guys. It's like, oh, you're an A24 film fan. It's like, bro, like how niche do I have to go to be accepted by the cool? And that's my whole thing, right? Is it's like, even when it comes to like music, I typically prefer the stuff that's like not procedurally made, but like that's being spoon fed to me a little bit, because it's just like, how exhausting is it to like have to scour through SoundCloud and like find the guy that lives in like Flint, Michigan, that's like a rapper, and like he makes his own beats, and he's like a 17-year-old kid, and it's like as much as that kid deserves for his stuff to be heard, so does everybody. Like there's still the like, I don't know, I have a hard time when people like shit on big productions and they can't remove the fact that it's made to make money and not see that like the artisans who made it still deserve to be respected. And
well,
like,
yeah, I mean, it's like the whole like selling out thing. People want to obviously do their art and they care about their art, and you know, they're gonna be how they will about it. But at the end of the day, every artist, yes, the reason they do it is because they want to do their art, but they also want to make a living off of their art. Like that's the thing. So it's like when you see someone make a ton of money off doing an advertisement, and it's like, oh, you sold out, and be like, did I? Because now I can give you that same exact album that you like, but now I don't have to feel like I'm going to be homeless because I spent all of my money doing it. Like that's literally all it is so many people, when it comes to in the sense of like music, is someone will like sign with a record label or something, and they're like, oh, you sold out, like you sold your soul, and be like, well, you guys, like as fans, keep saying, like especially early days, people will straight up be like, hey man, your stuff's good, but it sounds like ass. Like the production quality isn't that great. So then when I do something to make money so that I can pay for production quality so that you guys will like my stuff, you're going to call me a sellout. Like that's what so many, that's where a lot of it comes from, is like pop music. If you look at it, pop music isn't any like genre. Like there's
Not at all.
rap.
It
There's
literally means popular. That's
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's just like all pop music is just like expensive music, if anything.
That's so perfect, because, and I'm not trying to talk about music again for as long as we
Yeah.
did, but like last week we were talking about our albums, and I didn't like go into genre specific stuff because I kind of wanted to talk about the different genres that we shared. But that's a perfect example. Like I had briefly mentioned Justin Timberlake, and his album is literally pop, but then you went like the actual, you know, genre of that album, like specifically talking about future sex love sounds and everything, like there's a lot of R&B influence, or there's funk parts, or the freaking Weeknd's album After Hours, it's heavily influenced by synthwave, which is like, synthwave is such a perfect example of like pop versus niche, because it's both. What's interesting with that, and I've been like looking into it again just because we were talking about albums, and I love, you know, After Hours, and it got me in the mood to like play Hotline Miami again. And there's a very like niche genre with synthwave, and it's so interesting is we're always trying to like replicate our past. So in the 80s, the biggest movement culturally was 50s. In the 80s, everyone wanted to bring back things from the 50s.
Yeah, that's where you get the beatniks from.
Yeah, but at the same time, they were then creating synthwave and like Outrun and like that whole, I know they're different, but that whole kind of niche genre that was supposed to emulate the future. And what's incredible now is in the last like 10 years with video games like Hotline Miami or neon in movies, it's kind of since literally the last 10 years, 2011's Drive with Ryan Gosling, or anything Ryan Gosling's in, right? Like Only God Forgives, Blade Runner 2049, anything with Ryan Gosling and neon is probably scored by something that has synthwave vibes. And the incredible thing is, in the 80s, they were saying this is the future. And here we are in the future listening to things from the 80s. And we are literally like emulating exactly what they wanted us to, you know?
Yeah.
But it's a niche. It used to be like synthwave was niche in the 80s. And then now it's popular. Like now it's well, I mean, for lack of better phrasing, it's more pop culture. It's still kind of niche, but yeah.
So I guess maybe it's like what was once niche becomes popular because more people are exposed to it, and what was once popular becomes niche, maybe because it's like now it's like there's this whole like 2000s like goth emo, and then there's like this whole bimbo thing that you're seeing, like the whole like juicy sweatsuits and the tramp stamps and like the bad like 2000s tattoos are like super popular. Like I'm really involved. I'm like not involved, but I'm like I surround myself with like that kind of culture, like the tattoo culture, and like you're seeing that, and like even with graffiti, like the graffiti art is like so late 90s now, and it's sick as fuck, but like I just wonder now when you look back, it's like people are getting like barbed wire band tattoos, like,
yeah,
and
I
it's
see
like
those all the time.
that shit was super cool, and then for 10 years it wasn't cool, and now like it's cool again. And so is it cool because it's like ironic? Like I don't know. And it's
Well,
like,
it's modified too. Like you brought up
Yeah.
the 90s. Like it's not
Yeah.
pure 90s fashion. It's influenced by the 90s but modified for modern tastes. Tanner, you want to say something?
Well, no, I was gonna say I think that's actually my point exactly, is that things are just kind of adapting and changing. Which actually, there's a perfect segue into another thing I want to talk about that Austin said: movies versus films.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to get everyone's opinion on this because I want to talk more on this.
I do truly think that there is a difference between movies and films, but
Definitely
the
not.
funny thing is, I think in that discussion, it's actually kind of it turns what a lot of like film people like what they prefer on their head, in that I think there is a difference. But the funny thing is, I think when involving cinema, and this is where it's gonna be, I think there's films and then there's cinema. Not necessarily movie. I think movies and cinema are the same thing, but I think there are films, and I think films are kind of like the like traditional like A24, like that, like film like a film movie. But the reason I say those are films versus cinema is because I feel like with stuff like that, films, you can watch them in any format or medium and the story is still going to impact you the exact same way. So you could watch, for example, Malcolm and Marie. You watching Malcolm and Marie in a theater on a screen versus watching it at home, I think you're going to feel the same feelings.
I see where you're going with this.
Because what you need is, because the point of the film is to get you to feel those feelings. But then all the shit that like filmmakers are like, this isn't real cinema, like the Avengers movies and all the like big blockbuster. Here's the thing: the blockbuster movie is only a blockbuster in a cinema because
there's
you're
a sense of
literally
scale.
It's big. Like you need the scale. You need the box office, because that's what a blockbuster, you're busting the block because everyone's coming to the movies.
So then lined up to go see
what Harry I want to ask is like Interstellar, for example. There's so much scale and scope to it, and so much like there's so much that has to do with the fact that it was, shot in IMAX, and there's this incredible score and powerful visuals. Would you say that's a film, or let's just say film and movie instead of the term cinema? Is that a film? I would say Christopher Nolan's a great example, because when I used to say there was a difference between movies and films, he was the thing that tore me apart. First of all, he's like my favorite film director, in the sense of like movies. But his work used to tear me on that, because The Dark Knight, there's a lot of like there's a lot of meaning to it, because I used to say that films were to tell the story and movies were to like entertain, but The Dark Knight does both. And also The Dark Knight in that whole trilogy was only made so that he could make Inception.
I think they can. I think it partially comes from intention. But I think it also, I think Christopher Nolan, I don't think, in my opinion, my humble opinion, I don't think he's a great writer, but when he does write, I think Christopher Nolan writes films but makes movies.
But he also, he didn't write any of the movies I mentioned. His brother did. Let's talk about Tarantino, since you have a better opinion on him. Like Django, is that a movie or is that a film? And Griff, if you want to chime in too.
I think Django is a film. I think Hateful Eight is a movie, because he made Hateful Eight with the idea of like, he had the 70 millimeter Panasonic, and he was like, I want to show like a scale, because here's the thing with
but it's also shot literally on film. Like people used to refer to them as film because they were shot on film.
Shot on actual film.
And then there's all different terminologies. People say going to the theaters. I personally am a douchebag, and I say going to the cinema.
I'm going
Because
to
when-
go to the
so
cinema.
douchey.
Yeah, that completely is, because like that was I used to be the guy that was like, oh, I went to the cinema and I saw this film.
But you're
Or
also
there's that
European,
movie.
so it kind of makes sense.
Well, I
That's true.
just think, because I don't say theaters because I like reserving that for live theater. So that's the reason. Because when I go
I
and
respect that.
when I go and see theater RE, I go to the theater ER. You know what I mean? The different
Mhm.
spellings. But when I'm gonna go see a movie or a film, I can exchange the words, and sometimes I still get caught in how I describe, one of those pieces of art. I am going to the cinema to see it, but
I also think
I don't know.
last thing, and then Griffin take it. I also think that it depends on how the viewer experiences it.
100%. I think that's the whole point. Because people argue again that film gave you a higher, like what Austin was saying, movies, and this is for lack of better phrasing, not to offend anyone, movies spoon feed you, they entertain you, they give everything to you, you walk away, that's a complete story. Films make you question something in your life. They make you think about something, they open a part of you up. But movies can do that for people too. That's my thing. Like there's the La La Land score, and then there's the Avengers theme during the giant battle in Endgame. But the fact that both can emit an emotion out of you, I think, is the reason why there's no difference in the terminology, and that it just gets down to a sense of semantics. A good friend of ours, and I'm so sorry to go on this tangent before you, Griff, because we've like cut you off a bunch of times. I want to hear your thoughts on it. But a good friend of mine, as well as Tanner's, his name's Jose. Shout out the homie Jose. I used to converse with him on this topic a lot, and I would say there's a difference between movies and films, and he would argue there wasn't. And it wasn't until he made me realize that by saying that, you're, for lack of better phrasing, degrading the effort put into making a movie just because it's not a film. Because there's so much effort and so many people, like so much hard work goes into making Mission Impossible. Perfect example. Mission Impossible Fallout, in my opinion, is the greatest action movie that's been released to this day. And there was so much effort and so much polish that went into that, and so much passion, and it tells a solid story. So just because it's about a secret agent man doing action things to save the world, I don't think it should be regarded as a movie as opposed to a film. I think it should just be both.
Hey Academy, make a
movie award.
no,
Make an
fuck,
award
what's
for
the-
stunts.
That's literally what I was gonna say. Make an
For
award for
stunts?
stunts.
Like,
Category.
Respect
Hey
stunt-
Academy, make a
Dude.
category for stunts.
Dude, Tom Cruise would win like an award the next 6
No,
years.
'cause it's like-
Clean sweep.
when you see stunt people make movies, they're always incredible.
Oh, 100%.
John Wick is a perfect example. I don't know anybody who doesn't like John Wick. All three of them, they're all amazing, and it's like that's because you took the people who are the ones who really make the movie. Like, if you let a VFX artist direct a movie, they're gonna know how to shoot it so that the VFX are easier to make, and so that it's not as hard to cover up your problems. And so it's like this is what you start to see when you like John Wick, even like The Matrix. Like, they're not, the people who made that film aren't stunt people, but they respect stunts as a part of filmmaking. And I think a lot of times, like, and that was what you said before about like talking about like calling one thing a movie and calling one thing a film, is I think it degrades the effort that goes into it. If you look at the credits at the end of a Marvel movie, it's like an hour long. It's like, I mean, it's so much art that goes into it. And I think it's like, I can get mad when Martin Scorsese said what he said, but it made me like, oh, he doesn't respect what goes into making a film. He doesn't
I get where he's coming
all the stuff
from.
that happens after he stops, because he's there when it's filmed and then he's gone. And there's so much more that happens for a year, 18 months. And I feel like when you say stuff like that, is that you don't respect what's gone into it.
I don't think that was his point, though. I think his point was because of how like powerful specifically Marvel Studios was, and how dominant Disney was.
It's skewing the rest of the market for everybody, and it's making it harder for other people to make movies.
When a powerful force like that comes through and demolishes all competition. Robert Downey Jr. said that on the Howard Stern show. He was talking about how could you not, see that as like as this incredible, monstrous, spectacular thing that just comes through and changes everything.
Yeah, but that paid for rent for 1,000 people for
Yeah.
a year, you know? And like
Absolutely.
the lighthouse isn't paying anybody's rent. And that's my point, is it's like not even just to look at it like that. Like I look at it as from a selfish point. I sometimes just want to go to a movie and like just watch that shit and like see it, and I don't have to think about it. And same thing with music and same thing with TV. And so I always say like I would prefer to watch something that I could just turn my brain off versus like something I have to think about for, you know, and look up. And like it's like if you have to look it up at the end, I feel like you might have missed the mark when you were trying to tell a story. Like I get that it's probably my fault and I might not have been paying attention, or like I could just play it straight up and not be smart enough to understand. But it's like there's something to be said about making a story that is completely understood when you see it the first time. And it's like, what's the point of making something if the people who watch it don't get it and they have to like go on forums 12 years later, like us looking like I can't even think of a movie, but like even like talk about Donnie Darko, like it's like, what's the point? I get that it makes it like a cult classic, and you know, like but when you read a book, would you rather not just understand what happens than to like have to read it 10 times to like catch things about it? Like
I think there's value to both.
I think so too.
Talking about a movie for a decade has its own merit, you know. I think there's value to something sitting ultimately. With you.
Like I love Cloverfield. Like I love Cloverfield, and like the first one, the second one, the third one, they get shit on. So like the second and third one especially
the third
get shit on.
Dog
like,
shit, so you're wrong.
I love that shit. Like I love
the third one was bad.
Yeah. But like
10 Cloverfield Lane is great though.
Yeah,
Cloverfield's great. Fantastic.
Cloverfield Paradox, oof.
But the third does exactly the opposite.
It's a prequel, technically. Isn't Paradox before Cloverfield?
It does the opposite of what I'm saying in that it doesn't give you the story. Like you have to be like a fan of Cloverfield and 10 Cloverfield Lane, and to have done the ARG and to been into it when it came out. Like to understand like what happens in the Cloverfield Paradox, you have to like have been on the Cloverfield forums for 5 years.
Yeah, but that's like the Avengers.
It misses the mark.
Like you can watch Endgame, but if you've seen 22 movies or 21 movies before it, that 20 seconds is gonna mean a lot more.
That's different because that's an actual like series. I mean, truly the difference between the Avengers movies and like a TV show is you know, distribution, because they're essentially doing the same format. Like
we've talked about that. It's just a super expensive, really long TV show.
Yeah, they're on their 4th season. Like that's what the phases are. It's the seasons. Yeah, so they're on the 4th season. Griffin, my guy, you've been quiet for a minute. Jump in.
Films versus movies. What do you think?
Well, first off, I'd like to say on the note of Marvel, I saw somebody either on like YouTube or Twitter or something. They made a really interesting observation that Marvel is the closest thing that we have to the Greek and Roman god pantheons these days, where you have the one core story, which would be the Avengers movies, with everyone having their own split off. That's the exact same way that
wow, that's crazy.
That the Greek god pantheons would work.
I've never even thought about that.
Yeah, my memory is very rusty because I studied abroad and I was in Greece, and I was in Greece for a week, but for like 4 months straight, almost exclusively, I was in Italy, and we read all of these books. But I was a 19-year-old able to legally drink for the first time. So my memory is completely shot from those 4 months. But like, my point is that they would have the one book that is the origin point that would talk about like the first Greek god who would introduce and birth all of the other people. And then all of a sudden you have a story specifically about Ares, a story specifically about Hercules, about blah, 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 blah. So it's an interesting time when you think about it, because you might have people like Scorsese who are looking at the movies and thinking to themselves, they're crap, because he's Italian. I had to do that, you know? You might have the people who will shit on these movies and not call them artistic, but at the same time, we're basically living through our own Greek god timeline. So I don't know. That's a tangential thought. As for film versus movies / cinema / y'all aren't even including the term motion picture in there, so y'all are fucking up.
Motherfucker.
So my
Talkies.
What'd you say?
Talkies.
Yeah.
Talkies.
Yeah, let's bring silent films in the conversation as well. Come on now. No, but I think that the argument is a little pretentious in its own way, if for no other reason than the fact that film and the appreciation of film and any art for that matter is completely objective, where you'll have, let's use we've talked about Endgame a couple of times. Let's use that as an example. When I saw that, if my family listens to this, they're going to get triggered because my dad, my sister, and I, we like to see basically all the Marvel movies together. For example, the first Iron Man, we saw that 7 times in theaters. Like, we have been Marvel diehards from the get. Yeah. There was one point where once it went to the Dollar Theater on the north side of town, we saw it 3 times in a row. That's not a joke.
Jeez. I saw it twice, which was the first movie I've ever seen twice in my life.
Really?
In a cinema, but like 7 times, good gosh.
We cranked that out.
Vlad, we did see Endgame, which is a 3-hour movie almost back to back.
We did, but that was that and this is gonna come from like a very personal and like nerdy point of view. That was like such an event. Like, Endgame was
we had to.
Scope of seeing that movie, not even the movie itself, the fact that it was a culmination of like so many movies in so many years. There's just been nothing like it, like literally nothing like it. I think the longest going cinematic series is the Bond movies, technically, right?
As far as years go, for sure.
Those are
and I think amount of films too,
which they're still going, but
Pink
like
Panther.
To be sequential like Marvel was, there's just nothing like it. So that's my defense to the fact that yes, I saw a 3-hour movie twice in a row. Totally worth it. Griff, keep going.
Well, there is one other series that unfortunately is the only other thing to rival that.
Don't you say it. Don't you say what I think you're going to say.
Fast and Furious.
Let's go.
I mean, I'm not saying those movies are good, but it's 20.
Movies are fantastic.
20 straight years of the same people creating the same things. So
that's a good point. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. I mean, Marvel, they've been going for what, 10 years or 12, 13 maybe?
13?
Yeah, I think it's 13.
Yeah.
But that's not the same cast in every single movie. Whereas these
I
are
mean,
pretty
almost.
much minus Luke's Hobbs and Shaw.
Also, Tokyo Drift technically.
Okay, so
didn't have
they have 2
wasn't
outliers.
Dom the only person that like showed up?
Yeah, Dom's in it.
And
yeah.
briefly,
She's
Han,
like,
bro.
Well, Han's in the movie, and then Han shows up in Fast
That's
5.
right. My bad. Yeah. So I know the reason I brought up Endgame and all that stuff is because my family, we love those, and so my little sister, she doesn't really care about film that much. At all, actually, full stop. But my older sister, my dad, and I would like to see Marvel movies all the time. But when Endgame came out, that's a culmination of what? That would have been 10 years ago, 10 years of movies at that point.
11.
11, my bad.
But it was 10 years of things being released.
Exactly. So
2009 didn't have a release.
So much crap just culminating in this one movie. And I mean, social media had been ablaze for a while, but I was still in school when it came out. And my older sister, she had graduated and she's in Phoenix with my dad and everything. There was no opportunity to see it. So I took my then girlfriend to see it because I was like, I need to understand the memes. I want to be a part of the discourse. And I watched it with my then girlfriend. She didn't give a damn about Marvel at all. But this is something that's been integral to me for 10 years, 11 years straight now. So when when Captain America grabbed Mjolnir, like that was such an emotional moment. Yeah, spoiler alert. Sorry. There were so many like crazy moments, whether it was like just generic fan service or just beautiful moments in general that happened to it. I was sitting there like a baby. I mean, I didn't cry, but like I just filled with emotion.
I did.
I cried a lot, man.
Well, I'm just
I don't
know.
A little different.
I cried for like 10 minutes straight, like from like spoiler alert, Tony snapping or them going on like Tony sitting there to the part that broke me was seeing Steve and Peggy dance. Because as much as that like degrades a lot of what Cap stood for and it's an alternate timeline, Tanner was sitting next to me and so was shout out to homie Jose. I was bawling. So I was crying, like I was just crying, like, oh my gosh, this is emotional. I'm with, 2 of my best friends. We've been watching these movies for it was like almost 5 years at the time. I think Age of Ultron was the first one we saw, so it was 4 years.
Yeah, literally every MCU movie, Vlad and shout out the homie Jose.
We literally saw Age of Ultron other than Captain Marvel. We didn't see Captain Marvel together because I wasn't living in California at the time. But other than Captain Marvel, we saw every movie Age of Ultron and Endgame together. And the second that it panned over and it was Steve and Peggy dancing, I went from tears to out bawling.
Dude, I'm just sitting in the theater watching, and I just hear next to me, and I like look over, and I've known Vlad for a while. I've seen him cry many of times. I've literally never seen Vlad cry as hard as at the end of Endgame.
Oh, that meant so much to me. Cap's my favorite
fucking
Avenger.
beautiful.
And I like remember I looked over and I looked back and I was just like, don't join us. Don't do it.
So beautiful. As much as it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, it was so beautiful.
Unrelated, do you like the first Avenger?
Yes.
Okay.
Like
I think
Captain America, the first Avenger, I do.
I think that's, in my opinion, the second worst MCU movie.
Really?
That doesn't mean it's bad. Yeah, I genuinely was like,
we'll save that combo for another.
We should just talk about the rankings.
I was about to say something.
When not recording. I have my personal list written down. I'll send it to you.
I don't. I have my top 50.
I literally have them all ranked because another friend of mine.
Vlad's made me have them ranked.
Well, recently, a friend of mine from high school, she's watching WandaVision, and so we were just talking about the MCU, and it
Dude, how good is WandaVision?
It's great.
Oh my god, it's so good. Mm-hmm. It's like, I thought all these shows were gonna be trash, and I'm just like, oh, there's no way.
Up. Marvel knows what they're doing
for this shit to be so good. Like, I cannot wait for Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
I will say, I did not expect to care about WandaVision as much as I do.
Oh, I didn't expect to watch it. I was gonna skip it. I was gonna be like, I'm not gonna watch this shit.
See, that was the thing that Tanner and I talked about because we were so invested for like a decade. And as was Griff, as pretty much Austin, you've been there for everything too. I felt like once Endgame happened, I was like, okay, these characters that I've like come to know and love, their stories are done.
I need a break.
I'm not ready for something new. And thank goodness that like Marvel took a break instead of trying to push. Like,
well, they didn't take a break by choice.
Yeah, well, the coronavirus took a break for them.
But the thing is, like, they could have like really tried to push things like hard during the pandemic. Yeah, they were still trying to push Black Widow, but they like eventually recognized and pulled back. And that year break from them, while everything was going on in the world, was actually like a good breather. Because now, like, they got us, you know what I mean? Like, Tanner and I are sitting there Thursday night at midnight, like, watching WandaVision and then talking for an hour after. It's as if it's.
No, we only got 2 episodes left.
Griff, so you're sitting. So Griff, you're sitting and you're watching Endgame. You haven't finished your story.
Yeah, so I was sitting there and I was watching it, and I mean, I'm loving every single second of it. But my girlfriend I was there with, she was, she didn't have any connection to that. I mean, maybe it's because she's. From a house of only girls, like that's all the kids that they have or whatever, but they just didn't have a connection to it. And when we left the theater, I'm sitting there emotional again. I'm not crying because I'm not a little baby like you guys, but I'm sitting there really emotional, and she's just like, I mean, I could tell it was good, like she could tell that there were.
Yeah, she doesn't know why.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
that's why I said. Go ahead.
So that's my point of saying that, like, the idea of film versus movies versus cinema, all that kind of crap is so subjective, and art is in general, because like that's something that meant so much to me, but didn't mean a lot to her. And then somebody like Scorsese is going to crap on it regardless. And I think that's all things. I can speak to music a lot better. I mean, don't be mistaken. I understand and I love film, but with music, for example, I don't listen to a lot of pop music, going back to kind of what you were starting to say, Austin. I don't listen to a lot of pop music. I don't find a lot of individual value in most pop music. That being said, an album is an album, 9 times out of 10, there's still some kind of thought that's happening in it. Tanner, you brought up, what's the Harry Styles album, The Fine Line?
The Fine Line.
Yeah, I just finished listening to that.
It's just Fine Line. There's no the, but yeah.
My bad. It's a pop album, again, whatever that means. It's not something I personally connected to, but you can tell that he had an idea and a concept.
You didn't connect to it?
Nah.
I think if it makes you feel something, that's good enough.
Austin,
yeah, and so that's kind of like my point. Is like,
if it's like Harry Styles' Fine Line, if it's a Ninth Wonder beat, if it's Fast and Furious, if it's Shape of Water, if you walk out of it and it made you feel something, I think the job's been done.
And
If
that's
Shape
to a
of Water
degree
made
my
you feel
point.
something, you should never be allowed into a PetSmart fish aisle.
Fuck off.
Yeah, the aquarium's
Movie's
not
good.
for you. I bet you go to SeaWorld with a boner.
How do you guys feel about-
Who
We
doesn't
can't keep
though?
that in. We can't keep that in.
Yeah,
Who
we
doesn't
can.
go to SeaWorld with a
We're
boner?
clipping
That'll be the
that.
stinger. That'll
Yeah.
be the
Yeah, that's the title.
That'll-
SeaWorld
that'll
with
be
a
the
boner. I'm
Oh,
looking at Shamu on full rock.
Griff, did you
Just braked up.
did you say your piece?
I think I mostly did, right? Yeah, because like people are they're creating their art the way that they do. I mean, I'll think about it with photography since that's my profession. I put a lot of thought into my photos, but sometimes those don't get traction. Sometimes people will take a really generic photo, but they'll edit the hell out of it to be the corny Instagram way, and they'll get a lot of traction. A photo's a photo at the end of the day.
Again, I think if you see a
yeah.
photo and it makes you feel something, then
Exactly. And I
That's
mean,
perfect.
that's not to say that you should look at everything the same, because there's still the idea of categorization. Like you can look at it to say, again, using photography as an example, you can be like, that is an action sports photo. This is a landscape photo. Like there's the idea of categorization and genre and different levels of it. You can look at a photographer and say, this dude is an entry level photographer. This guy is a Pulitzer Prize winning photojournalist. There are different levels and dynamics to every part of it. But at the end of the day, everything is still a photo. And odds are, whether you're the entry level photographer who took a photo of their dog that is technically crappy, it still means a lot to them. Or you can be the world-class photojournalist who is shooting the Capitol riots, and they're seeing basically their life flash before their eyes because so many of these people might be anti-press. And it means a lot to them because this could be the last photo that they took before they were mauled by terrible people. You know what I mean? So like art is still art in its own way. I get where you guys are coming from. There is some art that's better than other art, but
well, it's better to
I don't
you.
know.
That's why I think there
exactly,
should
that's what I'm
be
saying. It's
difference
subjective.
in terminology,
Yeah.
I think my point boiled down to like we should stop shitting on people who aren't invested in the niche of everything. You know what I mean? It's like you don't have to be like neat, like we're fucking nerds, so we like love like the niche music, the niche TV shows, like, and like we can talk about like Bong Joon-ho, and we can go back to like like real niche shit. I mean, Bong Joon-ho's not niche anymore, but like anyways, but like I think it's just I think we need to as a culture like respect the stuff that's popular in a way, so that like, because I think it drives people away from stuff when they see like a bunch of hipsters or like
it has to do with
Weezer's
knowing where
not
it's come
punk
from though.
music. Yeah,
Like the
I guess,
last thing I wanted to like mention was on the topic of closing out the Marvel thing. Talk about niche and pop culture. That was such a niche thing, comics and loving comics and being a nerd and reading about these superheroes. And now it's the most popular culture,
Well, the thing, even with that, to like be even more specific, is so like in I'm sure a lot of people know this, but in the 90s, Marvel Comics was going bankrupt. So they sold off all of their most popular characters. So the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, literally all of their most popular people, they sold off to other companies to make movies and stuff. So when the MCU started and when they were making Iron Man, he was such a niche character. Literally in 2008, 2007, no one gave a fuck about Iron Man. And when you heard that Jon Favreau, who was kind of this
the elf guy
who made fucking Swingers and showed up in a bunch of stuff, when you hear that Jon Favreau is making an Iron Man movie with Robert Downey Jr., who at the time had no like good career, it was like, yo, this movie is going to be the worst thing in the world. And it is now the cause
and look at
the most money-making movie in history.
Yeah, look at who's the biggest face on the poster that made the most money, and look like it's Iron Man. And with like you go up to kids and at least when I was growing up as a kid, I would always hear you see Superman and Spider-Man and Batman, right? Those are arguably the three most popular superheroes when you were a kid. I'd argue now there's now a Mount Rushmore and Iron Man's on it. And like you go up to how many kids and you could ask who's your favorite superhero, and there's a good chance, arguably, like at least a 1 out of 4 chance that they're gonna say Iron Man. We should take a break.
To segue into perfect segue, Michael Bay, Mike Tyson. Their names are the same first name.
What?
So weeks ago, I brought up a question to these gentlemen. If you had a boxing match with Mike Tyson, aged 1 to 18, and you got $1 million for each year, 16 million if you fought him at 16, for example, what age would you pick? And I'm not going to start off because I don't want to give away my reasoning, because I'm right. Like, as always, I'm always right. As you guys know.
You can go last. 5.
I think
5 years old, probably. Go ahead, Griff.
Why 5? You cool beating a kindergartner?
Yes. The point is not that
it's not about the message. It's about the money.
Yeah, it's not about the message at all.
See, it's
What's the message exactly that you're sending?
That you're beating up a kid.
He's memeing.
I can do this.
I forget
the shit out of a 5-year-old.
I forget the business school term, but I think it's called like a SWOT analysis. And basically the big thing comes down to opportunity versus threat when you're trying new business opportunities. And so you have to look at it as an opportunity to make a shit ton of money, but also the threat of just getting absolutely demolished. Actually, yeah, here's a good question on that note. Of the threat is this
young?
Well, no, like my big question is this like an officiated match with a referee, or is this bare knuckles in the alley?
You just show up in an alley in Bed-Stuy. You're like,
no, it's a boxing match.
It's
a boxing match.
If he's like 3 years old, right? $3 million is like life-changing money.
Oh, absolutely.
And a 3-year-old
1 million
isn't gonna fight back.
Here's the thing. This point is that you can make double the money if you fight a 6-year-old.
You know, that's putting too much dip on your chip. That's the problem.
No, it's not, bro. Because it's this tall. I'm 6'2".
You don't think 6-year-old Mike Tyson could kick your ass? Because
dude,
not a chance.
No, you know why, Vlad? Because here's the thing: have
you ever met a 6-year-old?
There's still a possibility. Here's the thing: the percent chance of a 6-year-old Mike Tyson killing you is low, but it's never 0.
No,
0.5%.
Vlad, here's what I say to you, man: and for all you guys, so much what decides to a point who wins a fight is just plain wingspan. Because I'm a 6'2" guy, and your wingspan is kind of proportional to your height.
What does your wingspan matter when the kid's down here?
Listen.
Because I can reach him.
Dickhead.
I can't reach my head.
Yeah, I can punch him 1,000,000 times, and he will never get near me, whereas he needs to try to get under me to even make contact. So basically, until he's basically close to 10, if not older 10, I at least have a wingspan advantage. Don't be mistaken. When he's in the 10-year range, he's getting dangerous, you know?
You have a wingspan advantage against Mike Tyson right now, dude.
Wingspan, here's the thing. Wingspan it's not wingspan at speed.
What?
It's not wingspan in a fight.
Oh, yeah, that's why I said
because you could reach far, but if you're going slow,
also faster than.
But that's what I'm saying is there's still a lot of other factors. But I'm saying a lot of time wingspan is a huge deciding factor.
The longer guy wins more often than not.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yes, there are
the faster
other factors.
Guy always wins.
At the end of the day, I can have an arm that's 8 feet long, and some guy who's 2 feet tall is still going to kick my ass if he has better form. I'm saying to a point. You know what I mean? So my thing is,
someone who's 2 feet tall trying to jump up and shit out of Griffin.
You got an 8-foot arm, just
yeah, it's in a different area code. My point is, I would push it as far as I can. I feel like I'm comfortable getting close to 7 years old, just because of the fact that I am physically stronger and larger than him.
Too much risk, man.
Yeah, no, don't be mistaken. He has a lot of strength and technique probably at this point, but I think that I have the physical maturity to still be able to at least take the beating.
And you got to think about, Mike Tyson probably didn't start boxing until he was like 10 or 12, but you also have to think about, like, you have to suspend disbelief, obviously, and like think about the fact that like maybe we're thinking like Mike Tyson with the knowledge of like whenever he started boxing, and we can kind of stretch that back. But obviously this is a fucking ridiculous question. But yeah. So what's your final answer?
I think I can probably confidently go for 7 million and then invest a lot of that in a Roth IRA to make sure I have a good retirement account.
Money market type beat. I see you.
11.
Yeah, right.
You're dead, kid.
Dude, you would get your ass beat.
No, he started like about.
It doesn't matter when he
12.
starts. The
Yes,
idea
it
is
does.
no, it doesn't. The idea is that there's potential. There had to have been something that fueled him.
Yeah,
start
anger.
in the
He was
general.
bullied.
Yeah,
And
he
an
was.
11-year-old
He was a
fighting
kid
on
in
the
the hood. He was in
streets.
Bed-Stuy in the
Dude,
80s.
think about like middle schoolers fighting. You know what I mean? Like that happens. Like middle schoolers will fight. Even elementary schoolers.
Fully aware. I'm just like 6'3" and decently
I don't
fast.
think the
I
height
think I could.
matters
I
as
think
much
I
as you
could
guys
kick an
really
11-year-old
think.
Mike
And
Tyson.
this is
ass.
coming
It's a
from the
boxing
shortest-
match. It's not a MMA.
Here's the thing.
battle.
I'm
You
the
can't-
No,
shortest-
I know about
I'm-
boxing.
I'm the shortest out of the four of us, and I don't think any of your heights will play into this at all. Literally at all.
Maybe not
He's
as
a
much in a
short
boxing
guy.
match as it would in MMA. This is the short guy. Is 5'11". Like he's not short. We're just all tall.
I'm 5'10". I'm
5'10",
5'10",
whatever,
but
you're
I
still tall.
really don't think like height will play into it that much, and that's
Mhm.
only because I can imagine what it will be like if I got in a fight with one of you. I'm shorter, but I don't think that matters.
Yeah. And that's why I
If
was
it was
saying
a
everything you're
boxing
pointing.
match, it would.
Oh, so now it doesn't have to do with speed?
No, I still think.
No, it does still have to do with speed.
My thing is, because I just looked it up for reference, boys start hitting puberty around the age of 12. I knew a kid who was already probably like, this isn't like that big of a deal, but like in kindergarten, he was probably already like 5'6" or something like that. Some people just come out massive. I don't know. I mean, how big is Mike Tyson? Let's look that up. Mike
Well, there's the
Tyson,
factor
He's
of
like
like
6'10".
of the unpredictable.
Nine.
So
He's
when
like
you're in a
6 feet,
fight,
210.
there's a lot of chemicals and a lot of like emotions behind that stuff. You're like actual like adrenaline levels are a different place. You know, your heart's racing fast. You know, you can't think clearly. Like, and this is me assuming things. I've never been in a fight, but I can only imagine that all of those things come into play. Even if it's an 11-year-old kid, if they have the intent to fight you and to win, and they start swinging, they're gonna keep swinging.
Kids are strong as shit too.
That's my point. That's why. That's the only reason why I'm defending that an 11-year-old is still a really heck. I still say 7-year-old is a risky age.
Here's the thing: is that
Definitely
I
not.
don't think an 11-year-old could get like a hook on me.
Dude, if he hits your knees, if that
It's a
kid
boxing
is,
That's the thing,
match.
he
like
can't.
hitting your
If
knees
we're
and
going,
stuff,
if we're going with the idea that
It's a
Austin's
boxing
saying that
match
this is
built
a
up.
boxing
it's
match.
boxing
Yeah,
rules.
it's a.
If
This
it's-
isn't like
If
bare
you had a
knuckle, like,
boxing match
Yeah,
with
that's
Mike
what I was
Tyson,
asking.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
this is a
because if it was
legitimate,
MMA, I'm going like 12, like 12,
Yeah.
13.
No,
Because I could just
but-
kick him in the chest.
if we are
'Cause that
talking
matters
legitimate
more with length.
boxing and boxing rules, I go with 11 because of, yes, Griffin, wingspan, but also speed. But just the rules of the game. Like an 11-year-old, it would be easy because it's purely just like boxing is it's so much more focused than people like think. Like so many people think it's just hitting, but it's like
There's a
you have
technique
to be
it. There's a
there's
flow.
so much precision to it because it's
There's a-
literally like there's the bouncing. Like almost all times you have to like be protecting your face, but at the same time you're usually bouncing, so you really have to
Right.
hit that 1.2
moving
seconds
in and out.
where their glove comes a little bit too far down for you
There's a
to-
lot of
chin.
prediction into it too.
yeah, like
The
an
thing about
11-year-old's not
boxing
going to
and
be able to
MMA
do that.
The thing about boxing and MMA is you do like months of like research, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference. I think that the benefit you'd have as an adult. So what was your final answer?
11.
Okay.
Wrong answer.
The benefit you have as an adult is like one, I've probably been in more fights than like a 10-year-old Mike Tyson's been. But once he gets to like 12, 13, he's probably been in more physical fights than I have. Because like you said, he grew up in Bed-Stuy, he was bullied, and then he got then he was getting into boxing at that age. Like by the time he was 13, 14, he was like in junior Olympics, like fighting adults. It's like you really have to think about like that span right before he was like, you know what? I could beat motherfuckers' asses, dude. Like I'm big and I'm scary and it's all in the mind. But the big benefit we have is we're a lot smarter than children and we can take our experiences into account. And so like me, somebody who has been in fights before and like done like, as a workout, I've boxed and then kickboxing, like not ever in a fight, but I've done it as a workout. And so you learn kind of like the flow, and you learn how to like protect yourself and all that shit. And then even just playing sports in general, you learn how to like kind of, where to like when to attack and like when to wait, and you kind of learn like how to use your body and move yourself in a certain way. But anyways, Vlad, what's your
5?
5?
And
see, that's the thing, is it's like, yeah, it's a guarantee, but it's like, imagine like having twice that money. You know what I mean? It's
but that's the thing. That's the idea of like already 5 million is a lot of money, and I just don't. My like logic behind it is 5 years old. It's guaranteed. Like
it's
I
over in
literally
1 second.
see it's 99.99% chance that I'm winning that fight. Like, what are the odds that I'm gonna lose to a 5-year-old?
I mean, a 5-year-old probably couldn't even get the gloves up. You know what I mean? Like,
whereas like I honestly think like around 6 or up, like what they're around like 1st, 2nd grade and stuff.
They start
already at least it seems to me kids are getting smarter nowadays. So this is assuming that it's not taking Mike Tyson from back then.
No, not plucking him out of the 70s.
Like whatever. I'm assuming that it's him growing up now.
That's different.
He's growing up with like, just everything happens faster. Everyone seems to be growing up quicker. I just genuinely think 5 million, 5-year-old, easy money, clock it in, victory.
There's kill a 5-year-old with an uppercut.
There's no chance. I do think 7's still still a decent age, but I see a higher percent chance that I can lose to a 7-year-old. Like genuinely, I think 5 is a solid number.
99.9% versus like a
98. But why make it high risk, high reward? Just get high reward.
I understand that, but I still think 7's pretty inconsequential. What's up, Tanner?
I feel like you don't lose anything ultimately, because even if you lose, you're like, yo, I just fought a child Mike Tyson.
Well, no, because he's not Mike Tyson in this. I mean, he is Mike Tyson, but it's like, bro, you got your ass kicked by a child.
So
yeah, you don't know.
Here's another question: is since it's a traditional boxing match, obviously the winner gets the big pool of money, but does the loser get any, or is it an all or nothing situation?
Dude, I don't know. It's a hypothetical question.
All right, well, it's just a thought, man.
Either way, I'd rather have a guarantee than to know that I could have changed my entire life, but I got
lost to an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
Who here, Vlad? You said you didn't, I believe, but who here's been in a fight? Austin, you have?
I've been.
So all the black guys and not the white one.
I've never been in a fight, no.
I feel like trip to San Diego. And
I feel like if any of us could beat me up, if anybody could beat me up, it'd be Griffin. I still think I'd wash him, but if anybody had a chance.
That's Indistinct Chatter. Thank you for watching, listening, however you let us into your home. I'm Tanner.
Austin.
I'm Griffin.
And I am Vlad.
And this...
Before we check, I just want to say subscribe to the damn YouTube page, please.
And
that's what makes me feel good on the
Get our numbers up, y'all.
Why don't you?